But the most impressive countries are those who are not only doing well, but who keep improving even during these latest years of difficulties. You can look to Singapore, which is advancing from good to great. You can see Japan keeping very, very strong performance levels, or Estonia seeing a slight dip, but generally on an upward trend. But I would also say countries that may not do so well overall, but have seen impressive improvements. 20 years ago, who would have thought that Portugal would come pretty close to the OECD average, or Hungary? Even some countries at very low levels of performance, still like Qatar, have seen remarkable improvement. Peru, Brazil, Turkey, not only getting to better outcome levels, but also improving participation. So there have been some really impressive developments, even if the overall trend has not been so great. Digital devices hold enormous promise. They can make learning more granular, more interactive, more adapted to individual learning needs. Now, while you study on a computer, the computer can figure out how you learn, and then you respond to your learning needs. Technology, game-based learning environments start to make learning fun. We see augmented reality, bringing the digital world into the real world, virtual reality. Why would you listen to your teacher about the results of an experiment when you can do that experiment in a virtual laboratory? And when we look at the PISA results, we can see actually that the integration of technology into instruction has been a very important force for change for good. At the very same time, our results also show that, unstructured use of technology, students using their own smartphones in school can have highly detrimental effects, not just in cognitive learning outcomes, but also in the well-being of students. So finding the right balance is, I think, a really tough task for policy and practice. The relationship between the money we spend on education and the learning outcomes achieved is not straightforward. For countries that spend very little, unit costs are low, you can make a strong argument for spending. The relationship with outcomes is fairly steep, but most OECD countries are in an area where, the level of spending is fairly unrelated to the learning outcomes that are being achieved. And for those countries, it matters a lot more how you invest resources than just how much you invest. You have to make a choice between a better teacher and a smaller class, go for the better teacher. We see that the quality of instruction really is hugely influential. So spending choices matter certainly as much than the volume of spending for OECD countries. The most important lesson from the COVID pandemic is that we should do whatever we can to keep schools open, even in difficult times. You can clearly see that, particularly students from disadvantaged backgrounds, when they were locked out without real alternatives, they suffered quite badly. The second lesson that we can learn is that education is not just a transactional business. It's always a social, a relational experience. We see that very close relationship between the quality of student-teacher relationships and cognitive outcomes, but also social and emotional outcomes. So strengthening that relationship between teachers, having teachers who are not just good instructors, but also good coaches, good mentors, good facilitators, good evaluators, creative designers of innovative learning environments, good social workers. That, I think, is a really, really powerful lesson there. Last point to mention is the relationship with parents. We see that actually parental engagement matters a lot, not just for student learning outcomes, but also for student sense of belonging in education. And unfortunately, we see during the COVID times that parental engagement in education is often declined. We see a growing trend towards, commodifying education, where students become passive consumers of prefabricated learning content, where teachers become some kind of service provider and parents the client of education. That's created a distance in education that has been really detrimental. And those education systems that are very, very strong on making school a kind of center of society, of communities, where you have strong student-teacher relationships, where you have strong parental engagement. Those tended to be the ones that survived that pandemic best.